privilege to welcome you this morning to the opening of this workshop on the investigation and prosecution of terrorism financing and the use of targeted financial sanctions. I would like to begin this morning by extending my most sincere appreciation to GIABA for organizing this critical workshop. Our continued partnership with GIABA and the collaboration of international partners like UNODC and regional stakeholders have been instrumental in addressing the evolving threat of terrorism and its financing, not only in Nigeria, but across the West African region. I also sincerely thank the Honorable Minister for Interior for his personal presence here today. As one of the three-line ministers for the implementation of the AML-CFT-CPF regime in Nigeria, it is heartening that he is here. It demonstrates Nigeria's high-level commitment to ensuring effective implementations of the standard required of us. And it also shows commitment to the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. Nigeria has faced an acute threat of terrorism for over a decade, particularly from groups such as Boko Haram, the Islamic State West Africa Province, ISWAP, and other amorphous groups. These extremist organizations have destabilized communities, wasted innocent lives, and are a continuing threat to national security. Without funds and finances that enable their activities, terrorists and terrorist organizations will not be able to carry out the acts they do. Funds, supplies, and other material assistance are therefore central to terrorists' ability to operate. And that is why this workshop by GIABA, supported by the UNODC, is critical. Disrupting the financial channels terrorists use is crucial to weakening their ability to function. This workshop could not be more timely or relevant as we seek to sharpen our collective response to this menace. At the NFIU, we recognize that to successfully disrupt terrorist activities and ultimately dismantle terrorist organizations, efforts must be geared towards not only apprehending the individuals who commit acts of terror, but also to tracing and cutting off the funds that fuel their activities. Financial investigations are pivotal to this process. By analyzing patterns of transactions, identifying suspicious activities, and tracing funds across borders, we can uncover the sponsors and facilitators of terrorism. However, financial investigations are complex. Terrorism evolves, and typologies are constantly shifting. To keep track and disrupt them, it requires specialized skills, deep and effective collaboration between agencies, and effective coordination with international partners. This workshop provides a unique opportunity for analysts, investigators, and prosecutors to enhance their knowledge and improve their techniques in tracing licit and illicit funds that are channeled to financing terrorism and building strong cases against the financiers of terrorism. Capacity building is one of the cornerstones of the National AML-CFT-CPF Financing Strategy 2023 to 2027 in tackling terrorism financing. Officers such as you, the participants in this room today, play a vital role in identifying and investigating these cases. Your ability to detect unusual financial patterns, analyze suspicious transactions, and build strong prosecutorial cases is paramount. The NFIU is committed to collaborating with partners to ensure that capacities of officers within the AML-CFT-CPF ecosystem are upscaled in countering terrorism financing through financial investigations and other necessary skills and tools. This is why we have taken steps to launch the NFIU Training Center, which is intended to be a regional center of excellence for AML and CFT. In conclusion, I would like to underscore the importance of this workshop in advancing our shared goal of combating terrorism financing. The knowledge you gain here, the strategies you develop, and the relationships you build will be crucial in our continued fight against those who seek to destabilize our nations. The NFIU remains dedicated to supporting initiatives that enhance our collective ability to investigate, prosecute, and ultimately eliminate the financing of terrorism. I encourage all participants to engage deeply, share their experiences and best practices, and take full advantage of the expertise present here today. Let us move forward with renewed commitment, determination, and collaboration. Together, we can build a more secure Nigeria and a more resilient West Africa, free from the threat of terrorism. Thank you very much.
I'm honored to speak on behalf of the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, UNODC, both our regional office for West and Central Africa based in Dakar, Senegal, but also in particular our country office here in Nigeria. Our country representative just moved to another duty station, but at the beginning of next month, UNODC newly appointed head of Nigeria office will be deployed here. So, attending this opening ceremony is also an opportunity for me to thank you, all participants, but also our resource person. They traveled so far to join and share their experience with you. As we know, Nigeria, but not only Nigeria, the whole West African region have been exposed to terrorism for several years. We are facing this threat challenge for several years now, and also experience the increase of terrorism attack. As we are speaking this morning at the opening of this workshop, the news are just highlighting the ongoing attack in Bamako, Mali, which is a terrorist attack against the government in Mali, so we can see the threat. So the threat is becoming more and more pressing, given the spillover of terrorism activity to the Gulf of Guinea countries. Long time, terrorism, the attack were limited to Sahel country, and we know the situation of also Boko Haram in Nigeria, but nowadays, all the countries, even those in the Gulf of Guinea, Togo, Benin, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, all countries are facing the threat of terrorism attack. The director of the CEO of the Nigeria FIU highlighted already, terrorist group use various methods to carry out a terrorist attack, and to achieve that, they need financial and logistical means. This is why we are here, to see and to understand how they manage to mobilize resources. Terrorists require this financial capacity to recruit and support members, also to acquire and maintain logistics, as well as to conduct operation. They need money and other assets to purchase weapons, train, recruit, pay for the cost of travel and accommodation, and to execute attacks. Therefore, disrupting and preventing terrorism-related financial flow and transaction is one of the most effective ways to fight terrorism and preventing terrorists from accessing financial resources to successfully conduct their attacks. So also combating them through their financial means is crucial. Effectively combating terrorism financing is then a higher national priority for Nigeria. We can see the commitment at very high level with the President this morning with His Excellency, the Minister of Interior. The CEO of NFIU, the director, also highlights the significant progress made by Nigeria by improving its anti-money laundering and countering terrorism financing regime, and all these progress have been noted in the GIABA follow-up report, but also by FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. So this is also the opportunity for the United Nations on Drug and Crime to express his gratitude and also to acknowledge the effort of the authorities of Nigeria in fighting terrorism and terrorism financing. To investigate, prosecute, and secure convictions based on rule of law and human rights principles of terrorism financing cases is also very crucial for country, because we are conducting all this fight, but this also have to be based in the rule of law, human rights principle, and also compliant with international standards. But we know that due to the complexity of handling this type of offenses, especially in the context of a cash-based economy and informal economy, pose a real challenge for law enforcement and judicial authorities. We, UNODC, have our main objective to strengthening the criminal justice chain to face terrorism and terrorism financing by promoting the specialization of the law enforcement, and also judiciary, judges, prosecutors, investigators, by promoting interagency cooperation. You can see in the room and also around the table this integrated approach in fighting terrorism is taken into consideration by bringing all the relevant agencies here. Honorable Minister, distinguished participants and experts, the main objective of the 3 days workshop, which I said bring together all relevant national CFT agency of Nigeria, is to share experience. We know that you are already doing the job, but also this kind of workshop provide a platform for you to exchange your experience, but also with our resource person. So we want you to be fully engaged, to share your individual experience, but also the experience of your agency. Without pretending that we are here to teach you, we know you are practitioner, to teach you your work. We hope that this workshop will meet your expectation by strengthening your capacity in effectively fighting terrorism and especially the terrorism financing. I want to conclude by taking also this opportunity to thank our resource person and experts. They come from Nigeria. We have national recognized experts. They will be part of the training team, but also we have our colleague from GIABA and my dear colleague from New York, the Al-Qaeda and ISIL Taliban monitoring team, the sanction committee of the United Nations.
The DG of GIABA is supposed to have been here, but he has had some other engagements in another country, and so has asked me to stand in for him in this opening ceremony. And so he has a speech that I'm going to deliver, and I will read the speech. But before then, I want to stand in the same tradition with our host, the NC of Nigeria, and to again highlight the advantage, the uniqueness of the presence of the Honorable Minister of Interior in our midst. Honorable Minister, we are proud to have you in our midst. And the innovation that you bring into governance is well known across the region. It's exemplar. It's an exemplar. It's exemplary, and everybody in West Africa wants to be like you. Even the UNODC recognizes that. I was with him over dinner last night, and he says, have you met the Minister of Interior? I said, what about him? And he says, oh, that guy is something else. He's so young. Like, not the way he screamed it out. So young. I'm like, he bent his head. I'm like, why did you have to do that? Cool down. And he said, not just, I'm not done yet. He is so intelligent. How did you know that? No, we're in a meeting, and this guy brought ideas in he's sparkling with ideas. And so it's not just because he said it. I know that, and I wanted to meet you in Dakar, but you didn't come in May, June, during our last plenary. The innovation that you bring to governance, not only to governance, to the security domain, and the impact on the security question in Nigeria has debunked the notion that the Nigerian youth is good for nothing. And it has raised the promise that the future of Nigeria, of the Nigerian youth, that if you have young people in Nigeria, are there young people in Nigeria like this who can be so creative, innovative, and irrespective of the generational gap, can make so much impact in a short period of time? It took power on May 29 last year. It's barely 1.5 years, and you have made such tremendous impact. So we want to use this time to especially recognize your presence and praise you and the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Mr. President for identifying you and putting you where you are today. Now I'll go back to the speech. I will deliver it as a messenger. And it says, it gives me great pleasure to make these remarks on the occasion of the opening ceremony of the joint GIABA Unity National Training on combating terrorist financing in Nigeria. I wish to express profound gratitude to the President, His Excellency Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the government and the good people of Nigeria for their unwavering commitment to the implementation of anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism, AML CFT measures in Nigeria. I also extend thanks to the relevant stakeholders who are always ready to support GIABA. I also would like to thank the UNODC and for their valuable support in strengthening the collaboration and cooperation with GIABA that we've enjoyed over the years in delivering pertinent capacity building in the field of AML CFT. And to the resource persons who have traveled from far and wide, and the team members for their valuable support towards the organization of this program, we would like to say thank you. Thank you. I also wish to thank all participants who have traveled from across the land and breadth of Nigeria, from different states, for coming to this workshop, for seeing the need to participate in this workshop, and for the enthusiasm that you have demonstrated in coming all the way from the distance you've covered. The FATF recommendations, for those of us who are familiar with the international standards, recommendation 5, 30, 31, and the immediate outcome 9, focus on investigation and prosecution of terrorist financing. And then we see recommendations 4, 6, 8, and immediate outcome 10, aiming at terrorist financing prevention and sanctions. These recommendations and immediate outcomes require each country to implement targeted financial sanctions regimes to comply with the relevant UN Security Council resolutions, notably number 1, Security Council Resolution 1267 of 1999, and its successor resolutions, including the Al-Qaeda and Taliban sanctions regimes. 2, the Security Council Resolution 1373 of 2001, and any other UN Security Council resolutions that impose targeted financial sanctions in the terrorist financing context. These resolutions require countries to freeze without delay the funds and assets and to ensure that no funds or other assets are made available directly or indirectly to or for the benefit of any person or entity, either 1, designated or under the authority of the United Nations Security Council, under Chapter 7 of the Charter of the United Nations, including in accordance with the Al-Qaeda Taliban sanctions regime. 2, designated by that country or by a supranational jurisdiction pursuant to UN Security Council Resolution 1373. Such measures may be judicial, administrative in nature, or administrative in nature. Now, when you look at the report of the report of the mutual evaluation of Nigeria in the second round of GIABA mutual evaluations, you will see clearly that Nigeria performed abysmally on the implementation of the immediate outcome 9, which is terrorist financing, investigation, prosecution, and immediate outcome 10, which deals with terrorist financing, preventive measures, and targeted financial sanctions. That's not good. Nigeria is a big brother, or aims to be a big brother, and should always show the way. And so it was really sad that Nigeria failed to show the way, in spite of the huge challenge that we have in our security landscape. We know about Boko Haram and all of that, and affiliates in the northeast, and now northwest, north central Nigeria. Honorable Minister, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Financial Action Task Force, which is our global body, GIABA is just an affiliate of, is an associate member of the FATF, is the global body that sets the international AML and CFT standards. And GIABA is a FATF-style regional body, so we are like FATF, like father, like son. When you see a son, it looks like his father, you say, oh, that's the son of that man. So what GIABA is, what the FATF is at the global level, so we are at the regional level. So you've seen us, you've seen FATF. So we are the FATF regional style body for West Africa. And our job is to ensure the compliance of our member states, that's ECOWAS member states, with the international EMS standards in order to protect our region against the scourges of money laundering and terrorist financing, and the financing of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. We recognize the vital importance of taking action to combat the financing of terrorism. As a result, we set basic frameworks to detect, prevent, and suppress the financing of terrorism across the region. So we're not going to be shy about it. We know that terrorists and terrorist organizations need money to carry out the operations. Money or finance is the life wire of terrorist operations. If you take the money out of their operations, you disable them and you render them impotent. They cannot operate without money. Because without money, they can't buy weapons, they can't buy components to build bombs, to explode in marketplaces and crowded areas. They can't pay for transportation and logistics because they need that. They need vehicles, they need to buy fuel, they need to move from place to place, they need telecommunications, they need technology. They won't be able to pay for propaganda on the internet and recruit followers. They won't be able to remunerate fighters because you need to pay people who volunteer to fight, say to their family, a kind of life insurance that you give to them and their families in case they get killed on the line of fire. And so they can't do nothing without, they can't do anything, without funds. And that's why we go after the money. Therefore, taking money from terrorists greatly prevents attacks and saves lives. By committing to implementing the FATF recommendations, we save lives. So we're here to save lives. And when we talk about terrorism, we're talking about human lives, the lives of our dear ones. GIABA and other sister institutions need your help because terrorists are very creative at finding money. They know how to find money. Since 2009, when it broke out in the Northeast, of course, they've been having gas in the 80s. We know about the Maitasina movement, but it was quelled then, but then it resurfaced in 2009, and we've seen how creative they've been in raising money. They avoid the official channels of financial transactions. They don't go to banks. If they do, it's difficult to track the movement of their funding, how they raise and move funds. It's difficult to track. So they are creative, and we need to be creative if we have to stop that. So we know two things, right? We know that without money, they can't operate. We agree? And with that, we know also that they are creative in finding money. So what's our job? How do we make sure we obstruct, we disrupt the flow of money to their hands, to the people who eventually carry out the attacks? It's going to be a very difficult thing. Somebody making the statement this morning talked about the informality of our economic system, the cash basis. If you want to buy a house in Abuja now, if you take cash, bulk cash to give the owner, they will take it, isn't it? They won't tell you to go to the bank. If you want to buy a car from somebody, I can buy a car from you now and give you cash, you give me the car. I use that car to carry out an attack and abandon it there. So there's no track. You can't trace the ownership of the car that was used to carry out the attacks because it didn't go through the official system. Because these are challenges that make it very difficult, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be creative. That doesn't mean we should stop thinking. Let's keep thinking, and thank God that the Honorable Minister is here. He's a creative man, a man known for innovation. We believe that somehow we put on his thinking hat, and he will find a way, figure out solutions. But the more you kill them, the more they come. Somebody says that, I say, when our soldiers have done a lot on the front line. They've been killing a lot of people in the northeast and the north central and the northwest. But somehow it's like mushroom. When you remove mushroom today, you come the next morning, they come up quickly. So the more you kill, the more they come. Where are they coming from? Who's recruiting them? Who's arming them? Where are the guns coming from? These kind of questions we need to be asking them, asking ourselves. And how do we block that? How do we intercept that? How do we disrupt that? How do we make sure it doesn't flow? We cut off the lifeblood of terrorism and terrorist financing. First, terrorist organizations abuse the Hawala banking system. We talk about the unofficial. If you want to make money, if you want to transfer money from here to Niger, for example, you don't need to go to the bank. You just call somebody in Niger, for example, a kin, a family person, somebody you know, and say, okay, your brother has a warehouse here. He buys grains from Nigeria and sends it to Niger. So I'm going to give him some grains, supply grains for free. You give him the equivalent of the money in CFA to somebody in Niger. So you take 100 bags of grain to the warehouse. It's not a crime to supply grains to the warehouse, is it? So no policeman is going to stop you for supplying grains. But the equivalent of that 100 grains is given to somebody in Niger in cash. And he can buy bombs, he can buy the components of bombs, he can buy guns. And nobody knows where the money comes from. That money doesn't come from the financial system. You can't find it in the bank. The EFCC type agency in Niger cannot, the FIU of Niger cannot do any financial analysis to find that out. Madam, can you find out can you do financial analysis and do FIU reports and send to law enforcement? No, because you can't find it in the radar. It's not in the radar. Now, secondly, terrorist organizations also hide in plain sight behind fake charities and counterfeit fraud schemes. They exploit generosity and compassion. After great disaster, what happened in Maiduguri, for example, or it's happening right now, somebody can say, I want to support what's happening there now and give money for humanitarian relief. And before you know it, that money is actually not meant for humanitarian relief. It's going to buy guns to keep people. At the same time that people are mourning the death of their people from flood, people will be killed in Monday Market. For those of us who know Maiduguri, Monday Market, Damboa Road, and co. And they keep killing people. So how do we also innovate and think ahead of, I don't know whether it's possible to think ahead of criminals, because we are told that criminals think ahead of law enforcement. I don't know if we can reverse them. These challenges, we need delicate and skillful management to ensure that we can match them. Otherwise, we will die in our numbers. Some solutions to the plague will be found in the ratification and implementation of the resolutions. So we are doing well to make sure that we implement these resolutions, domesticate them into national law, transform them into national laws, and implement those laws. Countries are also required to criminalize the financing of terrorism. Nigeria has done that, and needs to keep updating their terror laws. They need to criminalize terrorism financing, terrorist organizations. Countries should also ensure that such offenses are designated as money laundering predicate offenses as well as terrorist predicate offenses. Issues of freezing and confiscating of assets of terrorists are also very important that we need to take seriously. We need to start going after that. How do we make sure that we can freeze and confiscate terrorist assets? At the moment, we're relying on international lists, like the UN list. We don't have we have a national list. I think the Army, the Nigerian Armed Forces, some years ago, were able to publish some lists of suspects that we're looking for, that if you find them, you should report them. Some of them are pseudonyms, some of them are not true names, so it's difficult to actually track them to living individuals, but we still need to improve on that list because those are fighters, not necessarily financiers. So we need to be able to identify financiers and also have a list that we can target for asset freezing, confiscation of asset freezing. Reporting of suspicious transactions related to terrorism. This is a very difficult one. When it comes to money laundering, it's very easy to be able to receive suspicious transactions from the banks, from the financial institutions, and analyze them at the level of FIA and send the intelligence to law enforcement like EFCC and co. But when it comes to terrorism, it's difficult, not least because they operate most of the time outside the official financial orbit, and secondly because funds meant for terrorist operations do not necessarily have to come from illicit or illegal operations. Somebody who has sympathy, if I want to fund terrorism, if I have sympathy for terrorism, I can use my salary. It's not a criminal, it's not a...
I always believe that one of the problems we have in this part of the world is the fact that we try to be too formally formal, you know, and it kills creativity, it kills the natural flow. The speech I prepared, of course, we'll share it with you after this opening ceremony, it will be shared. But I think I need to talk to you because as I did in the Army Resource Center, I like to talk from my head because I love to speak from the heart, you know. And I'll tell you, this is a very important topic, the National Training on Combating Terrorist Financing. I will tell you in a very simple way. I am a certified ethical hacker. I'm somebody with about 2 decades experience in ethical hacking and countermeasures. And one thing that my boss taught me, and I will never forget this about 20 years ago, is that when the criminal is a step ahead of you, in reality, he is a kilometer ahead. When the criminal is a step ahead of you, in reality, he's a kilometer ahead. And what's the problem? The problem is we not understanding the fact that agents of the state, we are supposed to be ahead of the criminals. That's the truth. My job as a white hat hacker then was to think, sit down, think, what can a black hat hacker, what can he probably be thinking in his room? Think for the criminal. Preempt and find solutions. That is how you get ahead of the criminal. Let me tell you the truth. They have access to things you don't have access to. Because they have access to illegitimate resources, which you don't have access to. So you need to do twice as much as them to be able to be ahead of them. My brother spoke about financing, and I'll tell you very clearly, that is the truth. But we have to understand, what is the main motivation of terrorism? The main motivation of terrorism is ideology. That's the truth. And let me tell you, it's impossible to defeat an ideological-minded individual without a superior ideology. So, when you're fighting an ideological battle, you have to come up with what I call the hybrid approach of the kinetic and, of course, the non-kinetic solutions. And for us, I want to say this very clearly. Your job is what we call in IT technology, in IT security, we call it footprinting and audit trail. You must be able to ensure that no matter how faint the footprint of a criminal, a terrorist is, it must be visible to you. Because once you lose track of the trail, once you lose track of the footprint, then you have put the life of 230 million Nigerians in jeopardy. That is the truth. And that's why at every point in time, I always say this. Your job is thankless. We can't thank you enough. Because the best of brains are meant to do what you're doing. And of course, I have no fear in my mind. I have no doubt that you're the best of brains that we have. But the simple truth is, we need to put our thinking hat and we need to be creative. You do not fight a creative mind without an inventive strategy. You must be an inventor. You must be a faster thinker for you to fight a creative mind. Let me be sincere with you. If you are a dullard, you cannot lead a terrorist gang. They're one of the most brilliant people. Some of them are exceptionally exceptional, intellectually. So, for us to be able to combat this, we have to know, number one, which is where I think we've gotten it right now in Nigeria under President Bola Tinubu. I'm not talking as his Minister of Interior. I'm not speaking here as Minister of Interior. Please, these are my own thoughts. So when I speak about the president, I'm speaking as somebody who understands the idea of the president. The president, number one, is very interested in fighting poverty. Because I'll give you statistics. As of September this year, according to the IMF, you look at the 10 poorest countries in the world based on per capita income. Interestingly, the first 9 are African countries. The 10th is Yemen. Number 1, South Sudan. 2, Burundi. 3, Central African Republic. 4, Democratic Republic of Congo. 5, Mozambique. 6, Niger. 7, Malawi. 8, Liberia. 9, Madagascar. Number 10, Yemen. What this tells you, look at these countries, look at the terrorism index, and you will know poverty is directly proportional to terrorism. So when people talk about physical warfare, terrorism, I tell people, it is not just physical terrorism, it is economic terrorism. They're intertwined. And when, by contrast, you look at the list of the 10 richest countries in the world, by virtue of, when you look at the 10 richest countries in the world, by virtue of per capita income, please permit me to, the 10 richest countries, the 10 biggest economies in the world. You look at the United States of America, number 1. That's in terms of GDP here. The United States, China, Germany, Japan, India, United Kingdom, France, Brazil, Italy, and Canada. Tell me 2 of these countries where you have established terrorist rings. So when you're asking the question for Africa, why are we on the lower rung of the ladder in terms of economic emancipation? It is connected to terrorism. Because the money that should ordinarily have gone towards economic development, the money that should have gone into value addition, the money that should have gone into creating conducive environment for enterprise to thrive, these funds are being used to destroy the state. So, for us in Africa, it is unacceptable that in the top 10 poorest countries in the world, number 1 to 9 are African countries. It means that GIABA will have a lot of work to do. Nigerian government will have a lot of work to do. Every state in Africa will have work to do. Having spoken about this, it is also important for me to also tell you one of the things. I sincerely believe, yesterday, unfortunately, we declared a public holiday, but we were at work yesterday. Yesterday, National Identity Day. I was there for like 6 hours. I sat down, listened to Eric. Normally, it's, oh, the minister will just come, listen to her. Now I said, listen, one problem we must solve if we are to move forward is to learn the meaning of workshop. A workshop is not a talk shop. If you talk and you resolve and it does not reflect in implementation, it is corruption in itself because you have wasted government resources. That's the truth. We must work. I spoke yesterday that at the foundation of fight against terrorism, if we are to get it right, are 2 things. And this is why, as my brother said, it's like mushroom. The more we remove, the more it multiplies. And that is the reason why this popular saying that they tried to bury me, not knowing that I'm a seed, has worked for terrorists in Africa. Because of our failure to aggregate two things. We have to be practical. I tell people, see, I'm sorry, I'm just a man that likes to speak my mind. I mean, love it, take it, I say my mind. But there are two things I think we must get right. Number one that we must get right is what I call individual and corporate identity management. Individual. The identity of everybody in Nigeria must be seen. Identity fraud must be nil. It must be impossible for one person to be able to open different accounts, or for one person to have an account in this name, have insurance in another name. Because in the financial circle, a lot of people, insurance and other things are avenues where people even launder some of these funds. That is the truth. It doesn't mean it should be the banking sector alone, no. Even on the stock market, capital market, across board, we must make sure that if you are James Kenny anywhere, you are James Kenny everywhere. We must be able to understand that. And we must be able to understand corporate identity, corporate companies, entities, and different people. We must know the promoters. We must have real details of who they are, what they are, and everything that they do. It is very important. Not until we are able to get that we will be able to be ahead, we will be able to forecast trends. If you cannot forecast trend, if you cannot project, if you cannot be able to predict, believe me, you will always be reactive. And that is what has happened in Africa. Terrorists will attack. We are going after them. We are going after them. We are going after them. Terrorists will be doing the hard work of thinking. What is government thinking? Not government just sitting and saying, oh, we are running after these people. So individual and corporate identity management solution is very key. And that is what we are trying to do with NIMSI, especially in Nigeria. And we will do that. I raised it with the account Secretary General in Montreal. The era when somebody carries a Nigerian passport with a name, that same Nigerian goes to Gambia, gets a passport with another name. He opens an account in Nigeria with a name, he opens an account in another country with another name. That era should be gone. That is what ECOWAS, that is what AU is meant for. Let's call it spade a spade. We must, I told them at the level of ICAO, we arrested somebody some months ago. The case is in court. And the person came into Nigeria with a Nigerian passport with a name. And when she wanted to leave, her British passport carried another name. Yes. In a globalized world, in the 21st century. When? No, that's what happened. Because the database, the passport data, biometric database of Nigeria is not being shared with any other world. So you can claim to be anybody anywhere else in the world and carry two different passports of two different countries with different names. And that's what I tell people. I am convinced that majority of the people giving Nigeria bad name in diaspora, most of them are not Nigerians, they are only carrying Nigerian identity. And that is something we must sort out. So individual and corporate identity management solution is very, very key. We must be able to harmonize that at least at a regional level. That is number one. Because no country can fight terrorism on its own. We must come together. It has gone beyond a single domain. It's now a regional thing. It started from the Sahel, as we said. Now it's going to the Gulf of Guinea. because we didn't collaborate at the level of the Sahel in terms of information sharing, in terms of database harmonization, and etc. Now, it's moving to this way. If we do not copy it, it will extend further. So it means that we must change our strategy. That is the truth. Number two is what I call integrity and document authentication system. It's very key. And I want to assure you, I briefed the DG of NFIU. We're already working on that. It's called a CIDAS solution. Nigeria will be one of the first to launch CIDAS in the world. And it's called Centralized Citizens Integrity and Document Authentication System. If there's any document in Nigeria issued, even if it is a pin of paper, that will issue anywhere, so fight is anything issued in Nigeria, anywhere in the world, real time, we will harmonize the database and we will verify it anywhere in the world. We will do that. We are at the verge of completing that. Because I know I'm a Nigerian, and I tell people my biggest asset, the biggest gift of my life is my citizenship of this great country. And I will not allow anybody to brand me with an identity that is not mine. We are not fantastically corrupt. We are fantastically intelligent, brilliant, hardworking people. But in a scenario where you do not provide the opportunity for authentication real time, you will be subject to guesswork. And when your identity and your integrity is subjected to guesses, then you should know abuse will become inevitable. So we are doing that very soon. And also, I need to also tell you this. 2 weeks ago, I was in Montreal at level of ICAO. Nigeria was imported into the PKI, the global directory of ICAO. And what that means, basically, is that once you carry a Nigerian passport now, any airport in the world, it takes less than 4 seconds. Any bank anywhere in the world with a Nigerian passport, it takes less than 4 or 5 seconds to authenticate your passport and your person. We have been able to do that. Because we must use ourselves. And that is why you get to Heathrow. Somebody carries an American passport or carries another passport. It takes them a few seconds to let him go. They look at you. They look at the passport. They look at you. They now start analyzing you. Do you have dreads? No. Remove your glasses. Let's do it. No, we cannot. We are too big to be treated in that manner. We have to put our house in order. And that's what we do. Also, when you get to our airports now, you will see that the e-gate solutions are already up there. The e-gate is not just for convenience. It's for convenience and security. And what it means, basically, is that you come into my country, when it's ready, we're just waiting for the president to launch it. You come into my country, you put your passport on the e-gate, it transmits it straight to the database. There's a query, it looks at Interpol, look at every and where. Don't worry, there are certain details I'll be able to talk about here. But the bottom line is, if you know you're a criminal or you have a suspicious background, don't come to Nigeria. You will not get it. And that's the truth. So once we control our border solution, once we are able to handle individual and corporate identity management, then we will now need to sit down and we handle our integrity and document authentication system. Believe me, you will completely shut the conventional financial sector. Once we shut that, the next thing will just be for us to focus on the informal. The problem we have today is that we're fighting too many battles at the same time. And the battles from different fronts are fast becoming wars. And that is a problem. Lastly, let me speak about the API solution. On Thursday, IATA came to train over 100 of our immigration officers. Nigeria now is the 16th country in the world to have what we call an interactive advanced passenger information system. That's been done. And to the glory of God, before anybody comes into Nigeria, we know who you are, we profile you before you get here. That is the truth. Our screening process now is very objective, no longer subjective. And that is who we are as a people. All I'm trying to say is that this is a workshop. Please, forget about the lyrics. Don't see yourself as being in a classroom setting. The best of ideas can come from the smallest of minds. Every idea, that's how we work in Ministry of Interior. A lot of our innovations, we listen to everybody. We believe that the slightest opinion might be the saving grace. Please, let us brainstorm. Let us understand that we need to build a solution. If the United States, with a population higher than Nigeria, if India, with a population 6 times that of Nigeria, if China, with a population 5 times as Nigeria, if it's about landmass, with Canada of landmass, arguably more than 50 times Nigeria, if they can secure the country against terrorism, we have no reason to fear. We are Nigerians. This is Nigeria, the biggest black nation on earth. That should not just count for numbers. It should count for performance. We are pace setters. We are to lead the way. Let's create ideas that other countries will come here and copy. We are tired of copying and pasting. We want to also export ideas. This is Nigeria, a country where collaboration works, a country where ideas drive ideologies, a country where the right ideology drives our motivation. And what is our motivation? A big Nigeria for a bigger Africa, for a safer universe. God bless you.